All right, so podcasting time. I figured that it would be a great way to start the show if we discussed our fans. Buddy, we're not the biggest podcast in the world. As we've talked about before, there's a lot of podcasts with a certain corporate leg up or a lot of money or bunch of famous celebrities behind it, such as like the former president and things like that. So but we have our fans here, don't we? And I was thinking, a lot of podcasts and a lot of celebrities, they get like kind of names for their fan base. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I was thinking maybe that would be a good way to start the show, is like we could come up with some, different potential names for our fan base. Does anything come to mind?
F-Stop Gang, Shutter,
Wow.
Shutter something. Is there something that starts with an S that resembles a group of people? Shutter Studs?
We don't want to exclude women, though,
Okay. So right now I'm at F.
And gang could
gang.
be bad because that could be like violent, Brotographers, that could be cool, but that excludes women as well. So I don't know, man. It's tough, but I think that any of those is probably better than Arianators. That's what Ariana Grande calls.
Oh my
fans.
God.
Yeah.
Is that what they are?
She calls them Arianators, which number one sounds like Aryan Nation. I think kind of like makes me think of that. It's evocative of that vibe for some reason. I don't know. And it just sounds the same. And also a ripoff of the fan base of one of my favorite podcasters, the Golden Boy Holden McNeely. Shout out to Holden McNeely. His fans are called Holdenators. And he says Holdenators ho, and that actually makes a lot of sense. But Arianators, it sounds like marbles in my mouth. But anyways, we'll keep on working on that. But whatever we end up calling you guys, dear listeners, I kind of like that. Our dear listeners.
Dear listeners, snap shooters, shutter shooters. I don't know, man. We'll have something.
It's hard to make it sound cool, but we'll come up with something. But that did kill 3 minutes of the podcast, so that's good.
Hey.
Yeah, and whatever we end up calling you, we appreciate your support. But I think it's about time that we get into a bit of a song here. If you'll indulge me, Michael.
Always.
Try not to hit my guitar on anything this time. Oh, pretty good so far. Haven't hit my guitar. All right. You ready, Michael?
I'm ready, man.
Look, if you had one shot, one opportunity to record a podcast with your brother Michael for 1 hour, would you capture it or just let it slip? Yo, the mics are ready, lights bright, the cams are steady. We did the research already and ate spaghetti. Dear listeners, that was a Eminem cover, an Eminem parody.
That was fire.
I can't say I'm a great rapper or that I can play that song very well, but we did it. We got through it, and regardless of my rapping skills and my ability to play guitar while I rap, I am still your very white photographer, Jared Poirier, and over here we have another photographer,
Michael Costa. Hi, how you guys doing?
Michael Costa, my brother Michael Costa, right, is here on the show, and hopefully Michael isn't feeling anxious today. I'm feeling a little anxious because this coffee isn't very good. I ran out of my good coffee, and I had to brew up just kind of like the old coffee grinds that I have around the house. You know what I mean? When you just like have kind of leftover coffee grinds or whatever from
I got you. You like went to the kitchen, right? And you like scoured the crevices of the countertops and just kind of scraped up years of leftover coffee grinds. and brew something up. I respect it, man. I respect it.
Yeah. So it's like there could be some mostly coffee in here, but there could be some nutmeg. There could be some other stuff. Anyways,
I mean, there's a few things. Yeah.
Oh, definitely not that. Definitely not that. But anyways, we are talking about anxiety today, specifically sales anxiety and how you can overcome sales anxiety. So this is going to be a good episode for all of the photographers out there, of course, but I also think it'll be a good episode for, entrepreneurs of any type, or, again, anyone that has ever wanted to sell anything, which is, I guess, everybody, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think, one of the reasons I wanted to do this was, I have some things that I've learned from some folks over the years, you included, but, it's still something that I still suffer from, right? Sales, I never saw it as a strength of mine. So I kind of have this anxiety over it. And so I think it's a good subject for us to cover for, my personal growth selfishly, but also for our listeners, our dear listeners, I think we're going to start calling them our dear listeners.
Our dear listeners. I like it. Yeah, because we do it for you guys. We do it for you guys. We do it for ourselves a little bit. There are selfish moments. Yes. But ultimately, this podcast is for you. And I think that, if you want to build a business, and if you want to become an entrepreneur of any type, you're going to have to learn sales at some point, right? Even if it's not that like on the phone, cold calling people or cold emailing, whatever it is, you're going to run across sales in just what you need to do to promote your business, right? Even when it comes to creating your website or creating your Instagram or any of these things, there's always kind of a sales angle. It's interesting that you talked about your personal experience with the topic, Michael. I always love when we can bring some personal experience to the table. Me personally, I think everybody has sales anxiety when they start out, like doing sales and actually putting effort into it. There's very few people where it's their favorite thing to do, right? But it's absolutely necessary. And for me personally, the more that I did it, like the more time that I spent on the phone doing sales calls, I can tell you from personal experience, just like doing video, right? It got easier the more that I did it. So, and I got more comfortable, and you start to see, that success rate go up, much like when you work out in the gym, which I haven't done. It's pretty evident. haven't done for a while. But when I do get back to the gym and squatting and deadlifting again, to see those gains, right? So we'll be seeing some sales gains, hopefully by the end of today's lovely podcast.
Beautiful. Yeah, I'm excited to do this, man. Do you want to kind of just do a back and forth, you go, I go kind of deal?
Sure, man. Well, yeah, I have like a little bit of structure here if you want to kind of work with that. I've kind of broken it down into a few different sections here. Maybe just addressing the whole idea of like sales anxiety at the very top, right? Like addressing that fear, why people are afraid of it. Maybe is something that we can do.
Yeah.
I think addressing some of the ways that you can prepare, right? Going through some of that process, like steps that you can take to prepare yourself. And then I think at the end, just kind of talk about how, sales fits into like the overall business strategy. So I kind of have like those three areas, if that's cool.
Beautiful. Let's do that.
All right. I'm always bringing the structure. I'm the structure boy. Maybe I should have been an architect or something like that. But I'm like, buddy, on the podcast, guys, not only are we trying to name our fan base unsuccessfully, none of those names were good. But I think
Dear
I
listeners.
just, I think I, dear listeners is good. I agree.
It's not bad. Yeah, we're rolling with it.
It's not bad, but
What else you got? What else you got?
my new title, Michael, my new title on LinkedIn, content architect. Boom.
Are you serious?
Boom.
That's
Maybe.
awesome.
Oh, no, it does sound pretty good.
I thought you
right?
did it.
I could do it right now. I mean, I think we
That's
just did it.
that's a bold, that's a confident
That's bold.
name, you know,
Yeah.
title
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I think it might be a good move.
Certainly made up, but it does sound cool. So, so let's talk about the fear around conducting sales, the fear around making that sales call, and why have you been afraid to do that, Michael, in the past?
Yeah, I think, I think it ties back to something that we've discussed on this show before, even episode 1, which is this, imposter syndrome. You feel like you're not, you feel like, if you get to the point where you convince them and you come on and then you do the thing, it's not good enough. You're scared about the end result. You're overthinking, either the end result, or you're overthinking, or sorry, for me personally, I'm overthinking when I'm on the phone, I'm not going to sound like I know what I'm talking about. And I think it all kind of stems into that, but I think it's also just like what you were saying. It's a lack of practice. And especially when it's like the phone on a phone or whatever, it's that kind of stuff really gets to me.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but then you have that anxiety, that fear around, oh, am I really going to come across the right way? Am I going to come across professional? And then you, in your own head, you start like building scenarios where you're going to lose, right? Where you're like, oh, well, they're going to pick at this thing and they're going to say, oh, you know what, like maybe your experience is more with like creating content and then you're trying to get into doing like more professional work. Like that was kind of my story, right? And you're like, oh, what if they say, oh, you're just a YouTuber? Like we've all heard that, right? Like what makes you think you can shoot this video properly, or you're using a camera that's not that great, or we want this or we want that or whatever. You just come up with problems in your own head that end up like not really panning out sometimes, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think it's like 90% psyching yourself out. You know what I mean? It's probably not the best way to prep for a call either, is like to think of the ways that it can go wrong. It probably just more so focusing on the value that you're going to bring, but I think that's more so maybe for later. But yeah, like 100%, man. Like I'm just telling myself I'm gonna suck it. I'm just gonna suck on the phone.
yeah. As well as maybe it also comes from just like a lack of confidence in your skills sometimes as well, right? Or just like a lack of experience, and those things obviously can be made up, right? Like if you're afraid of going into a sales call because when they bring up that question of what is your experience shooting something like this project, a really good way to mitigate that is to even before that call happens, gain a bunch of experience shooting something similar, right? So we'll definitely get into some tactics for dealing with stuff like that. But I think for now, just focusing on that mindset thing, right? And going into a sales call, don't be psyching yourself out. Don't be doubting yourself. Don't be kind of getting in your own head and obsessing about problems that probably aren't going to happen, right?
Yeah. I think everyone has their own reasoning, whatever. But I think for me, it's like, I'm decently confident in my ability. It's just I'm not confident that it's going to come across that way when I'm on a phone. I feel like, I've had sales jobs in the past, and it's not like I was selling my value or my service or my passion. It was like selling food. And it was like, I think having experiences like that, and having some of those scenarios play out in real life as well, like that scenario of like, I don't want to come across as like a super salesy guy, because no one likes that either, right? And then when you have things play out, like it's like, oh man. And so now you get to this point where it's like, it's something that means even more to you. It's like, this is like my thing, this is my passion, the thing I want to build my thing around. It's like it's that fear of not being able to convey that value that you can bring. And like you said earlier, maybe like being afraid of just in general, just like not sounding professional on the phone, which is important in enabling that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's all about knowing your value and putting that into the right words, right? So I think that segues really well into the next piece here, which are steps that you can take to prepare, right? Which is perfect because we're about 15 minutes into the podcast here. So really sticking to the structure on this one, Michael. Michael has to go pick up his girlfriend, so little BTS for you guys. So we're gonna be sticking to the structure today. Don't you worry. We're not going to be talking about cereal. We're not going to be talking about donuts or chocolate bars, okay? We're sticking to the script. And that's what we're talking about here is making a sales script. I think that's one of the first steps that you can take to really mitigating that fear. Just like when we're shooting this podcast right now, right? I know that you guys can never tell because it's just so seamless, but I always have notes right over here to reference. Whenever I'm looking down at the corner, it's probably what I'm doing, is referencing my notes, right? And I think that this is exactly what you need to do when you're starting out, or if you just want to improve your sales skills. Going in with something of a script, like some points related to the value of what you provide and some things about your background, some just things that you want to highlight basically about yourself as an artist and as someone who can help out your client, right? Laying all of those things out, but don't overlook those small things. Like there's a few things that I think in terms of just like respect, right? When I call somebody, the first thing that I say is like, hello, so-and-so. I like say their name right away. So they know right away within the first second, they know that I actually like know who they are. And I'm not just like calling about their duct cleaning or some other type of like weird scam, right? And then I think the other really important thing like right away is to just like ask them if it's a good time. Like, are you busy? Is this a good time? I mean, ideally you should be booking a call ahead of a time. The coffee's kicking in. Ideally you should be booking a call ahead of time. But sometimes you are going to be doing that more like cold call type of sales, right? That does come up. And in that case, definitely asking them like, is this a good time to chat? Can we talk about, how I can help your business? Focus it all around them and not make it indulgent and just don't be a pest, right? Don't pester people. Any other stuff that you would put in your sales script, Michael, from your opinion, or from your opinion and your experience?
I think I guess kind of tying to we're kind of tying to like that prep work, right? And I think part of that prep work is understanding the client and what they produce well. So whether that's a product or or e-commerce or whatever that thing is. So understanding that well, but also understanding, if they are willing to invest in marketing and that kind of thing, right? So doing some background work on their social channels and seeing if they're they invest money into some of the work that they do, and if they have a team. It's maybe some of these things can help ease your mind as well. And when it comes to things that worry you, one of those things being, are they going to be willing to hear me out? Are they going to be willing to even foot the cost of bringing on someone? Some of these companies, they're small. A bit close-minded. We have some old school business owners that still kind of exist. And so I think, if you can also do some of that prep work to understand who you're talking to, that might also help.
Yeah, removing some of those unknowns, right, in like a strategic way. So when you're going into the call, like it's basically like I don't know if any of our audience or Michael himself has played like role playing games or stuff like that. I mean, I imagine we've all played like a Zelda or something, right? Like before you're going into battle, you want to make sure that you get like your HP up and get all of your items, right? So kind of getting your HP up is kind of like gaining experience in the field, right? You also want to like get the right swords and bows and whatnot. That's kind of this is a very nerdy analogy. I apologize.
No, this is perfect. This is great. I'm more so thinking RuneScape, but I'm right with you.
RuneScape, like we could do tune in next week for our RuneScape.
Oh man! Next week we're talking to the creator of RuneScape.
Yeah. But doing that research and having that knowledge of the client, that's kind of like getting your armor in place, right? And getting everything ready to go into battle, which is that sales call. And once you get in there, you can defeat that boss fight, and you can get all of the gold, or rescue the princess, or whatever it is. But whatever your sales objective is, but get a new client, something like that. And the other thing, this is actually working out in terms of segues and analogies here, because the next thing is role playing, right? Which people think is a pretty goofy concept. In the kind of sales coaching and stuff that I've had, this is always something that like made me feel uncomfortable. Was like role playing, right? Like literally, if I was to try to practice my sales skills, like let's say talking to Michael and like going through what a sales call might be, right? So I work in real estate, so I might call Michael and be like, here, we'll do some right now for you guys. Hey, Michael Costa, realtor, you're doing great, man. It's good to talk to you, good to get you on the phone. I'm wondering, is this a good time to chat about your objectives in real estate marketing?
Yeah, I have about a few minutes. Yeah.
Oh, good. I'm glad he didn't just immediately say like no and hang up. Thanks for taking the time. So I'm wondering, what have you been doing in terms of marketing yourself as a realtor? Are you making any YouTube content or using Instagram or anything like that?
My son helps me put out a couple posts on Instagram a week. Something, he kind of does a little bit of that, but yeah, I don't spend too much time on that.
Right on. Well, let me tell you a little bit about what I've done for some of my clients, and then here, I'm not going to go into the entire thing, but that would take up a lot of time on the podcast. But start going into some examples of what you've done, to basically support the goals of other realtors, and try to get as much information out of them as you can. I think is a really good part of doing sales calls, right? Is trying not to talk too much and kind of let the other person talk quite a bit. I think is another huge key, right?
Yeah, man. Yeah, I think so. And I think the more you understand what their objectives are, the more you understand what, how you can bring value to them, right?
Yeah, for sure. And honestly, doing that role playing thing, like doing it just now, I felt uncomfortable.
Did you actually?
A little bit. I'm actually way more comfortable on an actual sales call than trying to pretend on one, apparently. But yeah, that's it's a good thing to do. It'll feel a little bit goofy, kind of in the moment when you're doing it, but it does help to prep you. Have you ever done that type of thing, like role playing to prepare yourself for a sales call?
Yeah, the sales job I had before, actually, we had like 6 weeks of training, and part of that was doing mock calls with some of the other trainees, and so that was probably the most comfortable I was with it, because I was so in practice. There was so much training in advance, and really when we're talking about a corporation training me, but really what you're talking about here is the same thing. It's that role playing practice, getting that getting yourself as confident as you can in advance before hopping on. One question I had for you, Jared, when you're doing a cold call, how much are you preparing an actual concept or pitch, like specific concept or pitch, or do you have a few that you have roughly lined up, or is that something that you're thinking of? Because that's one thing that I wrote down here as potentially a good thing to have.
Yeah, for me, there is, I'm pretty lucky because the structure is already sort of there for what I do. On the content side, what we do here is what you really should do is try to make weekly content, right? So that kind of model gives me structure in my pitches pretty much right away, where I can say, okay, this is something that we can present as a way for you to market yourself, to, you know, reach new clients, to build a relationship with people without having to like put in a whole bunch of like individual work, right? You can like reach a lot of people with less work by doing like YouTube content or you know, videos on different platforms. So in that way, it kind of gets structured for me. And yeah, I do have like pitches or packages around there, but I also tailor it a little bit to the client. Yeah, I think that's kind of a good example.
Cool. Yeah. So basically what I'm hearing is it's like you have things structured really well on your end, and then understanding, so that in culmination with understanding what they produce, and then hopping on their call and understanding their needs, I think are all going to fuse together, right? To help you on the fly.
Yeah. If it's hard to sell it if you don't know what you're selling.
Of course.
So you know, having a package is definitely a good thing, or just like a rough idea of, you know, what a package would be. Same thing with listing videos, right? They're like a certain price per square foot or whatever, and it's kind of you know, tailored to the client again, and like how much the property is actually worth. But at the same time, you have like that rubric and that structure there, which I think will really help you. Other things that will help you, I have a next section here. You know, the last section was a little bit on preparation. This one I think is just like setting yourself up for success. So in our role-playing game analogy, maybe this is like the magical boots to put on, but having that target demographic and specific industry knowledge, right? And you know, Michael talked a little bit about this, but researching the client ahead of time, is definitely a good idea. It's labor intensive to do that. I think you should. But if you're always working in the same like industry and you're doing the same type of work, you know, chances are what's worked for one client is going to be pretty similar in, you know, the case of another in the same industry doing the same type of work. And that's going to make things a lot easier for you in terms of like, you know, that research stage and being ready for that call. Like when I talk to agents and I can bring up like specific things about the industry and, you know, the competitive nature of the industry and, you know, brokerages and all of these different things, right? The fees that they have to pay to the brokerage and blah, 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 and all these different you know, insider kind of industry knowledge, right? Which I think is really good. And then the other thing is eventually once you're established a little bit in business and you have got those magical boots on, you know, you'll start to get referrals. And this, honestly, referrals makes it way easier. We talked about cold calls here, but the warmest call you can get is like a referral.
Yeah, 100%, man. Yeah, I think referrals are, you know, obviously ideal. And I think it largely ties back to something that we've talked to before, which is, you know, when you do get those gigs, showing up, being your best self, being a likable personality, you know, providing good work, really just putting your best foot forward. And, you know, when you can get those referrals, you're also going to get the repeat client work. And, you know, I think, you know, ideally, you know, you're never going to be 100% referral. Maybe if you're like massive, but you know, if you can start to fill in some some of that new business comes in, you know, a good portion of that being referral, and that's going to help out a lot.
Yep. And even getting some of those referrals, like they are easier. Like they're not, I'm going to call them like softballs. They're not necessarily like that soft, right? It's not easy, but being able to hit some of those out of the park, like, and get some home runs, that's going to raise your confidence for the other stuff as well, right? So once you have, 100%. You know, even if you're right, there's really no business that can survive like just by, well, I mean, there is some, I guess, but it's not easy to do it just with like the business that you already have. You kind of always want to be looking for new clients and expanding. And being able to get your confidence up by, you know, just nailing down some of those referrals along the way, I think is going to be really helpful, right?
Yeah, man. And I think, you know, the referrals are awesome because, you know, this potential client has, you know, identified already that they have a need. They themselves already know they have this need. They've gone to someone they trust and they have referred them to you. Yeah. So it really, you know, it's a lot. It's so convenient. it's so convenient. You don't need to help them uncover a need. You don't need to, convince them that you're the guy for them. Those two steps have been, fulfilled for you. So
yeah, then all you have to do is just not put your foot in your mouth,
Yeah.
Just don't screw it up from that point.
Yeah, that's right.
That's all.
Yeah.
And another thing that we're going to try to not screw up is getting into the news. We are back with the news, and let me just say that this is some of the newsiest news that we've ever done on the show. I mean, we do news here, and sometimes it's just, those photographer awards or whatever, or this new camera body came out, which we could have covered, I guess. The GH5 Mark II just dropped, but we're not talking about that. We're not going to talk about that because there's such pertinent news that we need to get into here. We're actually going to be talking about some current event stuff and some political stuff, but I don't think that any of the takes are going to be too extreme. But they might be. I don't know, but we'll get into it. So, Michael, what is our news story today, buddy?
Our news story today comes from Petapixel, our good friends over at Petapixel. The title of the article is Andrew Hallinan. It wouldn't be a Photography Bros show if we wouldn't, if we didn't mess up a name.
Hallinan.
Hallinan.
Now you're making me question it.
Well, it's good because I brought you into this. This is great. So Andrew Hallinan translates fine art photography into social action. This article is written by Percy Anderson. I'm going to say that's probably the correct pronunciation. And we have some really stunning work here. I'm just going to read.
Can it be Pierce, though? Percy? I don't know. Who cares?
I don't know, man.
Who cares?
I don't know. It could be Pierce.
We got it covered.
I could have completely butchered that one too, okay?
Anyways.
We all know it.
Let's move on.
But let's move on. So, to give it a little bit of context, let's read that first little bit here. Brooklyn-based photographer Andrew Hallinan has been attending Black Lives Matter protests for a year. As he started to bring his camera on marches, he began to capture the police in striking rave-like flash photographs, blending the fine art and social action. The photography is fantastic. Thanks for finding this article, Jared. But I mean, the way I kind of prepped this was I looked at some of these photos, pulled some of my favorites, and just kind of had some thoughts on them, because some of the images are just really, of course they are, it's an interesting take on photography with some of these, but also just like what some of the things might symbolize are just, real as well.
You know what, man? We'll get into some of the background around Andrew, around the photographer here, and we'll get into some of the background of this news story, and kind of even like bring the whole thing up to date, as this whole thing has been going down for, like you said, since last year. But I think before we even do that, like, let's just talk about this friggin' photography, man. This is a photography podcast after all. And that's what really attracted me to this story, other than the fact that the whole Black Lives Matter thing really impacted me hardcore last year. Kind of all that I could think about was that when these sorts of things were going on, tried to do what I could from where I was sitting, even donated a little bit of money to a few causes, and made a lot of content around it, and just tried to make my support known for the protesters out there, and everybody combating the racism and like police brutality and stuff that we were seeing, right? But you look at these photos, man, and just phenomenal work. Very dreamlike, very fluorescent, like these neon colors, like the article said, like Michael brought up earlier.
Rave-like.
Reminiscent of like rave and concert photography. just crazy energy, right? In these photos as well, like from a static image, you can like there's heat coming off of these, man. You know?
Yeah, man. So yeah, I mean, for me personally, I think that there are a few photos that really stood
Highlight
out.
them, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, the first one that really, I mean, not that the other images prior to it weren't stunning. I mean, they were, but you see obviously one that's a bit of a tighter shot. There's a bit of motion blur on the badge, but it's this deep red, and you have Trump badges on the the vest. I thought that was really interesting. So. With this one, it's, we kind of came to understand a little bit of what Trump's views were. And so, in the context of what these rallies were about, and then seeing, these sorts of badges, on some of these, police figures, these enforcer of justice. It's interesting to see that, because it's almost like an ironic. A little bit of an ironic image there. There are a couple photos that really stood up aside from that, but honestly, the one I really wanted to get to, I believe in the article, let me just double check this, I think it's the last or the second to last image. The second to last image, you have this black and white photo. It's a bit different from what we've seen across at least the portfolio that's
is this the one where the spray
here.
paint kind of is over the entire cop there?
So the one right above that, where you have no, but you're in the right area.
That one's good too.
That one as well that you pointed out is obviously very interesting. It's almost a little freaky, and also again is different from what we saw. But that image just above that, with the cop has his face shield propped up and his face is unidentifiable, and something a large part of obviously these discussions obviously is leading to police brutality and unjust racism and all this stuff. And one thing I find really interesting about this is I look at this image. And you can't make out any details. It's almost like it's this blank canvas of a man that almost symbolizes how we all start off. Okay, now I'm going to get really artistic and weird here.
Michael's going to get critical with his art analysis here. Let's go.
But hear me out. It's interesting because, when you understand the context of what's happening, what we're capturing in these images, and then you look at this blank face here, unrecognizable facial features, you think back almost to, we're all this blank canvas until we kind of consume the content and opinions of the people that are around us. Sylvester Stallone, I'll never forget when he won the Golden Globe for Creed, as I think he was supporting actor, he said that, and I'm going to roughly paraphrase this, but it was something along the lines of like, we are the total sum or the sum of every person, we've ever met. And, when I look at this image, I just think of, not literally the person that's in this photo, but the individuals that we're talking about when we're discussing police brutality tied back to racism. And it's, everyone starts off with nothing. And then the people that were raised around the media that we consume, Fox, when you just it forms our opinion and our view on the world, on people, on how to interact and treat them. And so for me, I just looked at this photo and although all of the work was really beautiful, I saw this as potentially being an iconic image that could mean something a bit more than maybe some might feel when they look at it at first glance and kind of cycle through and look at the colorful. I mean, the colorful images are great, but truly just a stunning image here.
Yeah,
truly
that's
stunning.
sick, man. Yeah, I think that's a really excellent point and kind of illustrates my own journey with this news story today as well, right? Like I initially saw these photos and I was like, man, these are crazy photos, and I've never really seen like photos quite like this. You know what I mean? That kind of gave me the feeling and the vibe that I was getting from these. And then, once you get thinking a little bit deeper and some of the implications of this, right? Like we talked about these photos being surreal. And I think if, if you were there at those protests in New York or Minneapolis, right, or every other place around the states where there were protests against police brutality, right? It would be surreal if you're seeing these police acting this way, you know, covering up their badges, trying to prevent journalists, prevent photographers from documenting things. These mass arrests of people who are just out there, you know, exercising their constitutional right to protest and to assembly, right? And wearing these like pro-Trump, like Punisher skull. It's unreal, man. Like it's completely unreal, and yet very real, right? And to be there and like this, is this my country? Like, is this reality? And kind of what we all were living through. And I mean, you know, things have changed a little bit, but it's not like these problems have gone away, right? So,
no, and it's like, you know, one thing you had mentioned. I don't mean to deter too much, but you know, you had kind of mentioned that, you know, you had, you know, put in work. I of course, you know, myself, and that's what everyone is kind of encouraging. Put in your research, try to learn and understand the situation a bit better. Yeah. And it's like, you know, of course we hope to make strides for tomorrow, but like it's really in how we communicate to the kids that are going to lead, you know, the next generation, and how that's going to change. And so the better we can understand and educate that next generation, the better for the future, right?
Yeah, and that's why I think that art like this, art like Alex's art is super important, super vital. We're definitely going to link his Instagram. You can check out his website. You know, I'd recommend supporting this type of art. I doubt he makes a lot of money doing doing these types of photos. We never mentioned he actually used to be a like a concert photographer. So that's kind of ties in very nicely, you know, photographing punk shows and that type of stuff, and also ties in with the whole theme here of like art and politics, like art and protest, kind of, you know, just the very act of taking photos of the police being like a political act and a political statement, and also creating these works of art, and they definitely are that, aesthetically beautiful. As you guys have seen today, as we've, well, I mean, if you are watching on YouTube, then you've seen them. If not, if you're just listening to it, I guess just check out his Instagram and you'll see them.
Right.
But yeah, it's some really fantastic art. So go ahead and search out Andrew Hallinan, I think is the pronunciation that we're going to stick with. And yeah, I said at the beginning, you know, that this is going to be a little bit more of a political episode with some, you know, political opinions. I think the opinions that we've addressed here so far have been A, police brutality is bad, and B, people have a right to protest and make art. I don't know if that's too controversial for y'all. I guess tell us about it on Twitter and Instagram, PHOTOBROS pod, photo_bros_pod. If you hate what we just said, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or don't, or just don't.
Yeah, or just don't talk to us. We don't want to hear your
or anybody.
We want to hear your opinion.
Keep it to yourself, or you know, go live in I don't know, Arizona.
Anywhere else.
I don't know.
Arizona.
I don't know. The moon. Go to the moon and live there. But anyways, yeah. Any final words on this whole thing before we close it up and Michael can go pick up his girlfriend?
Yeah, man. I think, you know, ultimately, you know, a large reason why we highlight this work is because it's highlighting the importance of photography and video in highlighting you know, a lot of these things, right? We talk about images that are iconic till today, you know, the Burning Man, the Falling Man, like they are images you know, that maybe in the moment you don't understand the impact that they can have, but you're there and you're just shooting in hopes that you can have that impact. And sometimes it's going to impact your local town, maybe your country, maybe the planet. But even if it impacts one person, I think that's a big thing that you can do. And so don't be afraid. Pick up your camera, try to do something that can make a difference every once in a while. I'm not saying that that's what you need to do. I'm not saying that's all you should do and dedicate your life to, but I think that there's an importance to art and capturing and sometimes really getting across very important issues and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of power. There's a lot of power in art, and that's what we're talking about here. Is kind of changing people's minds and asking people to think about things in a bit of a different way. So yeah, great topic. Great news story. It's been a fantastic episode. For me personally, I mean, I hope that our dear listeners enjoy it. Enjoy listening to it. Before we get out of here, there's a few people who we have to thank, right, Michael?
That's right. I'd like to thank my cat Cusco for vomiting on my bed mid-podcast. It took a lot of him to really get everything out, off his chest and off his stomach. But that's one person there. I want to thank Jared for being here, keeping me from going too far, too crazy.
For not throwing up on the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not discounting that ever happening, but,
We've been doing it for a while, so,
All right.
It does raise the odds, but...
Who else we got to thank here, man?
We need to thank... did we thank Michael?
No, I don't think I thanked myself.
Well,
not yet.
Let's thank Michael for the contributions to the podcast. Very, very thought-provoking conversation today, buddy. So I really appreciate it, and I'm truly looking forward to doing this podcast with you next week and every week after that until we're both dead. So. That is wonderful. The other person who I would like to thank is, two other people. Michael's like, I didn't sign up for that, man.
Where's my contract?
We need to thank Megan for help editing the content this week on the Galaxy channel, including this podcast. New one, we also need to thank Arrow. So thank you to Arrow for editing assistance on the content for this week. Other things that you guys can check out. We've got a newsletter. You can subscribe to that, whether you are listening on Spotify or whatever, or watching on YouTube. There is a link in the description to sign up for that. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram, photo_bros_pod. I don't think that anybody uses Instagram. I mean, I know that they do. I don't think anyone uses Twitter, is what I meant to say. Everybody uses Instagram. So prove me wrong. Follow us on Twitter. We have 11 followers on Twitter right now. So I will definitely notice if that goes up to 12, and I'll know that I'm wrong. So if you want to do that. Other things, there is some great content that you guys should check out. Michael Costa Music, where Michael is covering all types of popular music over there. And we've been talking about a metal collab for a long time. Hopefully we make it real. You want to do that right after we do this? I'm just kidding. Let's not. The other people who we recommend that you check out is the Masha and the Dogs podcast, which you can find right here on Spotify. Spotify exclusive, not because they paid her, but just because that's the only place where we upload it. Masha and the Dogs, about historical dogs. So I recommend that you check that out and that you subscribe to the Galaxy channel, where you can find this podcast and other great content. Anything else, man? I think I got it all, but maybe there's something else.
I think you pretty much got it all there,
okay,
man.
And as always, don't puke in your bed. That's our new sign off.